Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Steven Melendez, and I'm here to bring you the latest and greatest in soccer news from around the world. Welcome back to your favorite soccer podcast, everyone. I hope you guys are ready for another exciting show today. With so many things happening in the world, this is where we go to relax and listen about our favorite sport for the next 90 minutes. Before we get started, let me just say thank you to all of you listening. I'm excited and motivated to make this show the best it can be. So don't hesitate to interact with us on social media. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So now let's talk about what we're going to be talking about in the show. For the beginning part, we're going to be speaking about Serie A, just breaking down the league, pretty much like I've been doing for the Bundesliga and the Premier League. Just talking about, of course, Juventus and their title run, their 9th straight Serie A title. We're going to be talking about the league leaders, in goals, assists, clean sheets, all that. We're going to be talking disappointments, surprises, so all that. In the second segment, we're going to be talking about the MLS is Back tournament. Since that just finished up yesterday, we're going to be speaking on that as well. And then in the third segment, we're going to be talking about the Champions League Quarterfinals. We're going to be talking about those matchups coming up. There's one starting today with PSG versus Atlanta, so we have some very exciting matchups coming up. We're going to be talking all about them, going deep into them, deep detail about them. And then last, you guys are definitely going to want to stick around for the final part of the show, as I'm going to be talking about the top 10 Serie A players this season. So buckle up, everybody. Let's get started. Starting off with the Serie A 2019-2020 season. So, for a long time, the Italian league has been known for being a slow, boring game of soccer. However, that is easily no longer the case, as they are one of the highest scoring leagues out of the top, out of the big five. For example, 13 of the top 40 scoring teams belong to Italy. Same thing with 3 of Europe's top 6 goal scorers, including, of course, Golden Boot winner Ciro Immobile. And the league averages 1.48 goals per match. That's second just to the Bundesliga, which is at 1.56. So it's really not that far behind. And on top of all that scoring, they had the most exciting title race of any league. So let's get into that right now. This was easily Juve's closest title race since 2003. For so long, it's been, it's always been kind of like how the Premier League was this season with, and the Bundesliga, where Liverpool and Bayern absolutely destroyed the league. That was absolutely not the case this season, as Juve had finished the season with 83 points, and they were ahead of second place Inter Milan by just 1 point. After a disappointing ending. They lost 3 of their last 5 games in the season. So it actually looked like they might have lost the league. They might have lost the title in those 5 games. Luckily, they did enough early to keep the title. Now, aside from those 2, you also had Atalanta and Lazio with 78 points. With Atalanta just being ahead on goal differential. I mean, it was just so competitive in that top four. I mean, even the top five, because you had what was it? What was that team in the top five? How am I missing this? Come on, Steve, it's gonna come to you. We had we had Juve, we had Lazio, we had Atalanta, we had Inter. And what was the other team? Oh my God, you know what? Forget about it. But either way, the biggest thing about Juve's title race this year, they got some big wins against Inter Milan twice, Atalanta and Lazio once. So they got big wins against those top four teams that were posing a threat to them. And of course, we all know the key players to Juve's title-winning season was, of course, one of the greatest players of all time in Cristiano Ronaldo with his 31 goals and 5 assists in Serie A. And of course, Paulo Dybala, who had 11 goals and 6 assists. And on top of that, he won the MVP of Serie A this season. So, huge seasons from both of those players, and easily the reason that Juve was on top of Serie A. You also could give a lot of credit to the goalkeeper Szczesny, who has proven to be an excellent successor to Gianluigi Buffon. So, no, absolutely. So, definitely a great job from Juve this season. Now, let's get into the league leaders in terms of goals, which, of course, starts with the one and only Ciro Immobile, who has pretty much dominated Serie A and the Golden Boot for that year, for that league. He had 36 goals this season. First of all, that ties the record that what was it? Oh my God, how am I forgetting his name? Higuain. Sorry about that. Higuain had with Napoli back in the 2014-15 season. So absolutely huge season from Immobile. And then of course right behind him you got Ronaldo with 31, who just time and time again just shows he's one of the best attacking forwards of all time, probably the best, maybe right behind Messi. And then you also had Romelu Lukaku, who was absolutely essential to what Inter was doing this season, and he shows it even more in the Europa League. I mean, the way he's been using his body, just how strong he is. He comes in with 23 goals. And then you have Francesco Caputo, I hope I'm saying that name right, from Sassuolo with 21 goals. Those are your 20-goal scorers this season. Now, after that, you had a couple guys who had 18 goals in Luis Muriel from Atalanta, João Pedro from Cagliari, and Duvan Zapata, who was also from Atalanta. So you had some, top-notch scorers throughout the league. And of course, you see Atalanta there, who had one of the top offenses in the entire world, pretty much. Now, moving on, we're going to talk about some of the playmakers, the assist leaders of this season. And at the top, you have Papu Gomez from Atalanta. I mean, this guy was pretty much dominating the league. He comes in with 16 assists. After that, you got Luis Alberto, who same thing that Papu Gomez was doing for Atalanta, he was doing for Lazio. Just absolutely dominating the midfield and setting up teammates night in and night out. He comes in with 15 assists. And last on the double-digit assists in Serie A, you have Domenico Berardi from Sassuolo. Unbelievable. He actually had double-digit goals as well with, I believe, 14. So he's one of the only players in the league to come up with double-digit goals and assists. Just absolutely dominated this season. And it's unbelievable. You actually have 3 guys tied at 9th with Ciro Immobile having 9 assists. So unbelievable that he's in the top 5 in assists and leading the league in goals. Just unbelievable season from him. And then you also have Alexis Sanchez, who has 8 for Inter. So it's a very successful campaign for him after struggling the last few years. Now, last we're going to be talking about the clean sheet leaders this season. And it all starts with Juan Musso of Udinese. He had 14 clean sheets, and he had a 76.9 save percentage. Very solid numbers for him, especially when you're considering Udinese. They're not really the best, defense out there. Nothing really wows you about them. So, definitely a lot of great stuff there from him. And now you have a couple big names with Samir Handanovic from Inter, 13 clean sheets. Not as much save percentage, 72.2. And then you had Gianluigi Donnarumma from AC Milan, who was considered, for a while, one of the next up-and-coming goalkeepers in the world. He's kind of fallen off from that lately, but again, you see 12 clean sheets, 71.6 save percentage, really good numbers from him. And then, of course, you have Szczesny tied with Thomas Strakosha from Lazio, with both have 11 clean sheets. The only thing is that Szczesny actually leads the league in save percentage with 79.2. Really strong stuff from all these goalkeepers. And yeah, those are your league leaders for goals, assists, and clean sheets. Now, let's move on to the biggest surprises and disappointments of this Serie A season. And let's start off with the disappointments, because like you guys all know, I don't like to end it on a bad note. So let's start with disappointments. And easily, by far, my biggest disappointment in terms of like a player would have to be Mario Balotelli. He signed with recently promoted Brescia, who had just, like I said, been promoted from to Serie A from Serie B. They looked absolutely dominant in Serie B. So adding the prolific scorer of Balotelli's, ability seemed like a perfect match. He would be able to, rewrite his career, bringing a team like Brescia, up in through the ranks of Serie A. However, that was definitely not the case, as Brescia has just been relegated once again. No, not once again, because this is their first time in Serie A. So they just got relegated, and they had the second worst offense in the league. So, it definitely wasn't their defense, even though I'm sure it wasn't that good either. But when you're talking about, you add a player of Balotelli's caliber, and you're the second worst offense in Serie A, I mean, definitely a failure of a signing and a failure of a season for Balotelli. And my second disappointment in Serie A, probably not really Serie A, but from a Serie A team, would be Juve's Champions League disappointment to Lyon. I mean, for them to lose to a team that easily does not have the kind of budget that they have, and has been very disappointing themselves over the years, and especially in Champions League, they have not had a lot of success there. To lose to that team, when you have a guy like Ronaldo, you have a super talented young player in Dybala, and then just like up and down the roster, they're just absolutely stacked. 100% disappointed in what Juve did in the Champions League, no doubt about it. And now talking about the surprises. I love this because I love talking about, these teams that no one really expected and just absolutely flat out showed what they got. Starting with Hellas Verona. Now, they've been in and out of Serie A, battling relegation for a few years now, and were expected to get relegated once again. They were actually in the preseason rankings. They were considered the worst team in the league. No one had any confidence in them. Absolutely none, except probably Hellas Verona fans, because of course we all live and breathe we bleed for our teams. But yeah, no one expected them to do what they did this season, because they finished 11th. And they were close to a European spot a few times this season. Of course, towards the end, they kind of fell off, and then the top tier team kind of spread from the pack a little bit. But to do what you did after not even being impressive in Serie B the year before, and they didn't really make a lot of big time signings. They just grew within themselves and proved that they deserve to be in Serie A. So honestly, shout out to Hellas Verona. They did absolutely big things this year. Second surprise to me would be Atalanta. Let's be honest, guys. Absolutely no one has expected them to continue to be as strong as they have been this season. And then on top of that, no one really expected them to be, like one of the, most exciting and prolific scoring teams in the entire world. This is not just Serie A. I'm talking about any team, goes up against them, they're probably not scoring as much. Like, they'd have to outscore Atalanta in order to win. And for them to finish in the top three and matched with their success in the Champions League, there's just no bigger answer here than Atalanta in terms of surprises. With Juve and Napoli now officially eliminated, they're the only representatives for Italy in the Champions League. Just think about that real quick. Not Juve, not even Lazio, not Inter because they're in the Europa League. Atalanta. Honestly, huge things from them. I mean, they have, and the thing I like the most about them is that, yes, they have some, high scorers like Ilicic and Papu Gomez, like I've already talked about, but up and down the roster, they got guys that can score. You got Zapata, you got Gosens, who else? Brozovic. No, I don't think not Brozovic, sorry. But they have just overall in the entire roster, you're talking about just flat out, excellent players, and they molded together to make a really, really good team. And don't be surprised if they continue to make noise in the Champions League. And now, my last surprise of the year would have to go to Chris Smalling, the defender from Roma, who was a last-minute loan move from Man United, and he instantly helped solidify that backline that had a bunch of holes last season. And now with his loan spell officially done, Roma have been trying to bring him back permanently. Unfortunately, it looks like Man United are trying to play hardball and trying to get as much money from a guy that they didn't even want. So, you'll have to stay tuned to see if Roma are able to bring back their star defender. And I mean, I hope that they can because, it was they had a really strong season. They actually finished 5th. Wow. They're the ones that finished 5th. That's the team I was looking for in my mind in the beginning of the show. But yeah, I mean, and he was a big part of it. Obviously, you also had Dzeko, who was a huge attacker for them. And but honestly, Chris Smalling, if it wasn't for him, they wouldn't have been where they were. Because with the defense being as bad as they were the season before, it looked like it was just another season of just the offense trying to catch up for the defense. So yeah, definitely a huge season for Chris Smalling once again. Now, last in this segment, I want to talk about the best moments of the season. And I'm going to start it off with a little match between Juventus and AC Milan that ended 0-0, with Juventus winning 1-1 on away goals. And this was on June 12th. Now, you're wondering, and this was actually a Coppa Italia, the cup match. And you're wondering, why was this, it's a 0-0 match. That's usually the most boring matches to watch. And absolutely I understand it. And it was. However, it was back and forth, a lot of good defense. However, this game was as significant as any in a long, long time because this was the first game back since the league was suspended due to COVID. So, this was huge for Serie A just to finally, be back in the public eye, for fans finally being able to watch their favorite teams, and, just overall, this was such a historic moment for Serie A. Now, the second best moment of the season has to go to Lazio's 21-game unbeaten streak. I mean, it felt like there was nothing stopping Lazio, and there really wasn't. When play was suspended, they had won 16 of their previous 18 games. Unbelievable run that they had, and really the only reason they probably weren't league title winners. I mean, honestly, I really felt like with them playing the way that they were in that stretch, they could have overtaken Juve, but with the league getting suspended, them coming back, they just were not the same team. It was as clear as day because they had easily the best home record in the league. And what happens when they come back? Just their second home game back, they lose 3-0 to AC Milan. And AC Milan were great in the restart, so it's not like I'm saying anything bad about them. But it's just when you consider how Lazio were playing before the restart, before the league was suspended, and then when you compare that to them afterwards, it's night and day, and it's hard not to wonder whether that Lazio team could have challenged for the title. I honestly believe they could have. And part of it, like, you have to remember, probably the biggest game, one of the biggest games this season, just so happened to be during that streak when Lazio defeated Juve 3-1 back in December. It was such a huge victory because I remember Ronaldo made the first goal, and of course it just looked like another Juve victory, another one on their tally. But no, sir. Lazio came back and scored 3 straight goals, not in succession, but they answered back with 3 goals. And none better than the one where Luis Alberto gave a perfect cross to Savic, and the control that he had to just slide it home past Szczesny. I mean, honestly, it was you could tell how much that meant to those players for them to play as good as they were, and then to meet that challenge against the best team in the league. Overall, it was huge. It was a huge game. I mean, just go back and watch the highlights for that game and look at how those players were reacting to these goals. You could tell how much it meant to them. So definitely Lazio's 21-game unbeaten streak deserves to be on this list. And then last best moment of the season. This is more, I mean, honestly, this should have probably been in my surprises, but had to have been the run of the season from Adrian Rabiot versus AC Milan. If you guys haven't seen this, you have to. It was beautiful to watch. I mean, Rabiot had barely, and the reason this was probably the best moment, one of the best moments of the season, was because Rabiot had barely made any impact for Juve in those 12 months that he was with the club. He had been with them for 12 months and he hadn't made a scratch for them. Nothing. And what does he do? He just makes one of the best runs I've ever seen. He starts it off by playing great defense on his end. And then doesn't stop there. He first nutmegs an AC Milan player and then proceeds to run all the way down to the AC Milan attacking third and then shoots an absolute wonder goal to put Juve on top. I mean, just unbelievable goal, unbelievable run. I mean, and easily Rabiot's, best moment as a Juve player. So that's going to do it for this segment. Make sure you guys stick around because in the next segment, we're going to be talking about the MLS is Back tournament, which just came to an end yesterday. Stay tuned.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back, everyone. In the last segment, I spoke about the Serie A season as a whole, broke it down in its entirety, and in this segment, we're going to be talking about the MLS is Back tournament, as it just finished up yesterday with the Portland Timbers taking home the title. And pretty much what I'm going to be talking about is just like how the MLS came up with this tournament. I'll break down the championship game, some of the best games of the tournament, some of the best players, and the biggest surprises and disappointments of the tournament as well. So let's just get started. With the season being suspended just as it was starting due to COVID, the MLS just had to find a way to return and keep its players and staff safe at the same time. And that's where the MLS is Back tournament came in. There were some early scares with both FC Dallas and Nashville SC needing to withdraw from the tournament due to some positive tests among their club. But thankfully, the MLS have had no positive tests since and ended the tournament on a great note. You constantly saw players wearing their masks and being, at least socially distanced amongst, other teams and at least the staff members. Of course, like, among their own team, they were obviously doing whatever they wanted, because at that point it's like, if you're going to get it from someone on your own team, I mean, you should just leave the tournament. But overall, I feel like this tournament went off without a hitch, aside from obviously those two teams withdrawing, and the actual play in the tournament was very high level. I was very surprised. I did not expect that at all from the MLS. So now let's break down the championship game, which was very competitive. However, the Portland Timbers just looked, much better overall throughout the game. They looked, more experienced, which they are, because like we all know, or maybe some of you don't, Orlando City in their, I believe, 12 or 13 years of existence have yet to even make the playoffs in the MLS. They've had, for all the money that they have put into that club, it's never worked out. But it seems like they're turning things around now, because they've been the Cinderella story of this tournament. But they do lose to the Portland Timbers 2-1. And just to start off, both teams looked really solid in the first half, with each team putting pressure on the other team's goalkeeper. However, Orlando City actually dominated possession in the early parts of the game. I believe even pretty much the whole first half, they had at least 60 to 65% of possession. An absolutely ridiculous number. However, the first goal did come from the Portland Timbers in the 27th minute with a diving header from Mabiala. It was an absolutely beautiful cross from Valeri, who's been the best player for the Timbers for I don't know how many years now. But he just came through once again with a cross. He was almost at the halfway line, and just delivered a beautiful cross that it soared right over the Orlando City defenders and right into the head of Mabiala. Beautiful goal, and there was no way the goalkeeper was going to stop that. Now, Orlando City did end up answering back 12 minutes later with a tricky run and cross from Nani to Pereira in the 39th minute. It didn't really look like Nani had a lot of space. He really didn't at all, as the Portland Timbers defender was all over him. But he had a little stutter step here and there, kind of making the defender, fall a bit, and giving him just enough room to cross it into the box. And it was a ground cross that found Pereira perfectly. And Pereira also had a Portland Timbers player on him, and there was a bit of a scramble in the box. Luckily for Orlando City, Pereira was able to find his balance and slot it home in the left bottom corner. Now, in the second half, it looked like the Timbers were determined to before I even get there, the first half did end up 1-1 with, like I said, Orlando City pretty much dominating possession. But Portland Timbers barely needed any touches on the ball. They just that's how talented they were going into this tournament. They had talent from the top to bottom with plenty of experience throughout their lineup, and it definitely showed, because in the second half it looked like the Timbers were determined to take this game, as they dominated play much more than they did in the first half. There was no more dominating possession for Orlando City. It was consistent pressure being put on the Orlando City defense by the Portland Timbers, and you could see it. They were consistently getting in the attacking third, finding connection for connection, and Nani and the Orlando City offense just never made any big attacking threats. It was literally all Portland. And they were rewarded for that aggressiveness with a big scramble in the box that led to a solid finish by Zuparik. It had this ball had 2 tips before Zuparik slotted it right by the Orlando City goalkeeper. But I mean, good for them. I mean, it was deserving, because they had completely dominated the second half, so it would have been a travesty not to get at least one goal. And Orlando did their best to get the equalizing goal. But Portland were just super well positioned and disciplined defensively, and that's where that experience comes in, and it showed. So that is exactly why they came away with that 2-1 victory and the win in the MLS's back tournament. So big props to the Portland Timbers. And that was the championship game. So now let's move on to some of my favorite games of the tournament. And without a doubt, I'm going to start it off with the LAFC versus LA Galaxy game that ended 6-2 in favor of LAFC. Yes, it was not a competitive game by any means, even though LA Galaxy definitely put some pressure on LAFC early as they scored the first goal, even though it was an own goal by LAFC in the 5th minute. And LAFC was just, they kind of came into this game, feeling like they had the upper hand here, and they were giving LA Galaxy just way too much space, and that's why that goal came to fruition. Now, LAFC did get a questionable penalty in the 11th minute, but regardless of that, Diego Rossi scored the first of his 4 goals on the night with that penalty. However, Pavon of LA Galaxy answered right back with a penalty score of his own in the 31st minute. So in the 31st minute, the LA Galaxy were up 2-1. 2-1. Things ended up turning around drastically from there, as the LA Galaxy's sloppy defense at the end of the half. This, in my opinion, is where it all changed. Because being up 2-1, going into halftime, you'd have the confidence. You come in at halftime. You go into the second half with dominance and trying to take this victory over a rival. But at the end of the half, LA Galaxy, one of the defenders, just let a ball slip right under his feet and gave Diego Rossi an absolute bunny of a goal to just slot right home into the left-hand corner. It was absolutely terrible defense from the LA Galaxy. He should have just cleared it from there. But that's how the LA Galaxy were playing for pretty much this entire tournament. So really, it should not be a surprise. But then after that, it was just goal after goal, because in the second half, the LA Galaxy just had no answer for LAFC's high-tempo offense. You had Wright Phillips, who scored a beautiful goal at the bottom right corner in the 55th minute, kind of like just luring the defense out. It kind of looked like he was like trying to regroup, and then all of a sudden, when he was inside the box and starts dribbling out, and I'm like thinking, okay, he's just gonna like pass it out, kind of look for something better, but no. Wright Phillips just kicks it perfectly to the bottom right corner from outside the box on the left side, to slot it right past the LA Galaxy goalkeeper. Beautiful goal. And it was at this point that things just opened up completely for LAFC. I mean, the LA Galaxy were trying to pressure up to try to take the ball away because they needed to score a goal. And LAFC's offense is just way too good for that. And that just gave Diego Rossi his hat trick in the 75th minute. And then just to rub it in a bit, Rossi then added a 4th goal in the 96th minute with about as easy of a goal as he can ever have in his career. A beautiful tap-in from about 2 feet away. And that is how the game ended at 6-2. Of course, there was a beautiful outside-the-box goal by Mohamed. I forgot his last name, but Mohamed, who had a beautiful goal from outside the box that just passed. Like the LA Galaxy goalkeeper had absolutely no chance, and that is how it got to 6-2. So that was one of my favorite games to watch. And another LAFC game makes this list, just not in their favor, as Orlando City defeated LAFC in penalties in the quarterfinals of the tournament. Literally no one expected Orlando FC to make it this far in the tournament, let alone defeat the favorites to win it. I mean, coming into the tournament, they were considered one of the worst teams. And it looked like LAFC had another win another step toward the final when they scored a solid goal in the 60th minute with a Wright Phillips tap in between 3 Orlando players. I mean, the cross was beautiful as he just I forgot who the player was, but he was just about to go out of bounds, but he just gave a perfect pinpoint pass to Wright Phillips to just slot it right over the goalkeeper, and it looked like LAFC was going to take it, but and LAFC kept the pressure up throughout the second half. It looked like it was over for the Cinderella story of the tournament. It really did, because even into the 80th, 85th minute, LAFC was consistently in the Orlando City offense, attacking third. It was just they just had Orlando City had no answer for that offense, and it was possibly the best offense in the entire tournament. But it didn't end there, because a former LAFC number 1 draft pick, Moutinho, came through with a beautiful header in the 90th minute to send the game into penalties and eventually give Nani the chance to score the game-winning penalty for Orlando City. You could see it after the game how good it felt to come through with that win. I mean, you saw Nani running across the field, kind of being like, what now, baby, what now? Because nobody gave this team a chance. And they came through and dominated this tournament. I mean, they made it. They were the runner-ups. I mean, they were the runner-ups in this tournament, and they were considered possibly the second or even worse team in the tournament. But that is definitely not the case anymore, guys. Now, let's get into the best players of the tournament. And this is in no particular order, but let's just go, and since we've been talking about LAFC so much, let's continue with an LAFC player, with Diego Rossi. He went home with the golden boot of the tournament with 7 goals, despite not even making it past the quarterfinals. He had 7 goals and 2 assists. Absolutely dominated the tournament at the start with 5 goals in his first 2 matches, which does include that 4-goal performance against the LA Galaxy. And like I said, despite being eliminated in the quarterfinals, he still won the scoring title. I mean, that's extremely impressive and definitely deserves a spot as one of the best players in the tournament. Next, I'm going to be talking about a goalkeeper from the Philadelphia Union, Andre Blake. Easily the best goalkeeper of the tournament. I mean, the goal difference, the expected goals from shots on target differential that he had, negative 5.06. I mean, it was just ridiculous. They allowed 3 goals in the entire tournament, and Blake pretty much, I mean, up until, of course, the semifinal loss to the Portland Timbers, who eventually won. But Blake pretty much single-handedly made sure that the Philadelphia Union made it to the semifinals with his ridiculous saves. It was just, it was something to watch. If you guys enjoy watching good goalkeeping play, I recommend you go and watch what he did in this tournament. His performance just needs to be noted, hands down. Next, gotta be talking about, the next 2 guys were both guys who featured in this final game. The first one I'm going to be talking about is Nani from Orlando City. I mean, he has transformed himself into the superstar for Orlando City. He had 3 goals and 4 assists in this tournament, and he's been the driving force behind Orlando City's surprising run in the MLS is Back tournament. I mean, he is easily the man. I mean, of course, Pereira was also excellent for them, but just he was not as essential to what Nani was doing. His 2 goals against Minnesota United in the semifinal to get them to the championship game were huge. I mean, and aside from that, I mean, he had constant. What am I trying to say? He was just a part of all the big clutch moments for Orlando City in this tournament. And he added a huge assist in the final as well, setting up Pereira, like I already talked about, for that goal. So just super big props to Nani, finally showing his consistency in the MLS. And last, I'm going to talk about the MVP of the tournament. It has to go to Sebastian Blanco of the Portland Timbers. He had a total of 3 goals and 5 assists, and before the final, Blanco had scored or assisted in every single game for the Timbers. I mean, if that doesn't, the fact that they made it to the final, I mean, he was also a huge part of the final game. I mean, he just didn't get onto the score sheet. I mean, it's not normal for someone to get onto the score sheet in every single game, but that's exactly what this man did. He was easily the MVP of the tournament as he eventually led the Timbers to that mountaintop of the MLS's back tournament. So, super big props to Blanco and the Portland Timbers as a whole. And those are my favorite players from the tournament. Next, I'm going to be talking about a few surprises and disappointments about the tournament. Of course, like I always do, let's start with the disappointments, because we always like to get off on a good, let's finish off on a good note, guys. So, my biggest disappointments in this tournament easily would have to go to Atlanta United and LA Galaxy. Starting with Atlanta United, they won last year's US Open Cup and the Campeones Cup and entered this tournament as one of the favorites to win it. And even without star striker Josef Martinez, they were expected to do much better than 0 wins and 0 goals in 3 group matches. I mean, these group stage matches, they count towards the regular season. So, I mean, Atlanta United are off to a terrible start without their star striker, and it makes you really think, I mean, are they going to be one of the worst teams in the league this year? I mean, it's hard not to think so after the performance that they showed in the group stages. And with the LA Galaxy, this team was easily the biggest disappointment because unlike Atlanta United, this team had their best player. They had the most MLS Cups and MLS in MLS history, and they signed Javier Hernandez, Chicharito, who is the highest paid player in the league. Hernandez missed a penalty in the first game, which would then result in a 2-1 loss to the Portland Timbers. Then they lost, like I already told you guys, 6-2 to LAFC with Chicharito sitting out because of an injury at that point. And you can already tell at that point it was just going to be a terrible tournament for the LA Galaxy. They did get away. They did get one draw from against the Houston Dynamo, kind of at the same time taking the Houston team out of the tournament as well. But yeah, overall, just an absolute disappointment from the LA Galaxy, who came into this tournament as, again, one of the favorites to come out on top. So, now let's talk about what's coming up next for... Oh, wait, what am I talking about? I didn't tell you guys about the surprises. This is the best part. So, of course, I have to go with the Cincinnati FC. After losing 4-0 to the Columbus Crew in the first group stage match, everyone wrote them off, me included, because even before this, they have not looked good. I mean, they just started. They were an expansion team recently, and you know it's never easy for an expansion team. But what did they do after that? They answered with back-to-back victories over Atlanta United and New York Red Bulls, giving them both goose eggs on the offensive end. Their tournament did end up ending with a round of 16 defeat to the eventual Portland Timbers in penalties, though. Like, they took the Portland Timbers to penalties. So, just an absolute great tournament for Cincinnati FC and something for them to look forward to for the future. And, of course, this would not be a valid list if I did not add the Orlando City team as the biggest surprise of the tournament, who were considered easily one of the worst teams entering the bubble, even ranked lower than the expansion teams Nashville SC and Inter Miami. But they have shocked the world, becoming the runner-ups in this tournament. I mean, and a lot of that has to go to the star power of Nani and Pereira. But, I mean, honestly, just huge. I mean, and this is a big boost for them going into the regular season, which is what we are going to be talking about next. Because now what? Now with the MLS back tournament done, what is coming up next for the MLS? Now, there have been reports that they will be resuming regular season play on the weekend of August 21st. Now, and this so far they've only scheduled like a first phase, which is just 6 games scheduled for each team, and those games will be regionalized. A big reason for that is just to minimize travel as much as possible, and by scheduling the first phase this way, they're trying to buy time and see if things will loosen up in the country, making large gatherings and long road trips feasible again. Honestly, I don't think that'll be possible because, like we all know, I mean, COVID has obviously just continued throughout the country and throughout the world, and it doesn't seem like there's a stop in sight. But yeah, that's what's next for the MLS. It'll be interesting to see if they can, keep positive tests out of these organizations. I highly doubt it, but I want MLS back. I want regular season play back, and if this is the way to do it, then this is the way they're going to be doing it. So that's gonna finish it off for this segment. Make sure you guys stay tuned because in the next part of the show, I'm going to be talking about the Champions League quarterfinal matchups, giving you guys a little breakdown of each matchup. So stay tuned.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back, everyone. In the last segment, we broke down the MLS's back tournament and where the MLS would be going from here on in. And now let's talk about the Champions League quarterfinal matchups. And we're going to be pretty much what I'm going to be talking about. We're going to be reviewing each quarterfinal matchup, talking about, some past results in the UEFA competitions, some key players, the recent form for each team, and then I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a prediction for each matchup. Now, we're going to be starting off with the game that is going to be happening today, PSG versus Atalanta. Now, we've already talked about Atalanta enough, especially in the Serie A breakdown. Now, let's get into PSG. And, I mean, if you guys already know, I'm a huge PSG fan. So I've been kind of living through these horror years in the Champions League. In the past 3 seasons, they have been eliminated in the round of 16, and I mean that wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't in the fashion that we lost in. Like last year, we lost to Man United after going up. We were up, I believe, 3-1, or it was like 2-1, or something. Either way, we went up in the first leg, and so many Manchester United players were out for the second leg. So it really felt like, whether it was injury, suspensions, whatever the case may be, they had a lot of players out. We were practically playing a Manchester United reserve team. And what did we do? We lost in terrible fashion and lost on away goals in a 3-3 aggregate score. And honestly, the craziest thing is that's not even the worst loss. I mean, it felt at the time because, of course, any recent loss is going to feel like the worst. But that has nothing on the loss that we had against Barcelona in the 2016-2017 season, when we lost again in the round of 16, and we lost 6-5 on aggregate. Now, get ready, guys. We went up 4. I mean, what do you mean? Everybody should know this. The PSG was the laughingstock of the entire soccer world when this happened, because they went up 4-0 in the first leg. 4-0. I don't forget this. This was 3 years ago, and it's still in the back of my mind like it happened yesterday. And what do we do going into the Camp Nou? This Barca team needed 4 goals just to match us, and what did they do? They walloped us for 6 goals. 6 goals. I mean, you guys can feel the pain in my voice. That was so sad. I told my mom, this is the worst day of my life. I told her that. It felt like the worst day of my life. And that goal at the end of the game with a Sergio Roberto sliding kick. I mean, it was just, yeah. It took. All right, let's just move on from that. Yeah, those were the last 3. The last 3 years in the Champions League. Those were the 2 worst losses. I mean, we lost to Real Madrid in between that, but they pretty much dominated us 5-2 on aggregate. So I didn't even talk about that. But yeah, they're the bottlers of the Champions League. No doubt about it. Now, my goodness. Now, the key players for PSG easily go to Mbappe, who in all competitions has 30 goals and 13 assists. Absolutely ridiculous for a 21-year-old. You have Neymar, who came into the team probably thinking he was going to be the superstar, didn't realize Mbappe was going to be coming in. But he's got 19 goals and 9 assists. And then you have Mauro Icardi, who has 20 goals and 4 assists for the team. You know, that front 3 is just, it's hard to match that in any team. But there's obviously a lot more to a team than just scoring. So, and that is a lot of the reason why PSG have failed as they have. So now let's get into a couple of the key injuries. And it actually has Mbappe there. There's been a lot of reports saying that Mbappe is going to try to play after that nasty ankle injury that he suffered in the match against Saint Etienne. I mean, it looked really bad. It looked like he was going to be out for the season. That's how I felt. But now there's reports that he might play. So that would be a huge boost for PSG going into this game. And they also have Di Maria, who's suspended for this game after he got too many yellow cards. That is huge because he's got 12 goals and 20 assists for this team. I mean, he's been huge. I mean, ever since he joined PSG, he's been huge. But yeah, that's going to be a big miss for them. And then Marco Verratti, who is that controlling, really smart defensive midfielder for them, he's also going to be out. Those are going to be, if all 3 are out, I mean, it's going to be very hard for PSG to come out on top in this game. I mean, even with all that extra talent they have, I mean, honestly, as a PSG fan, I actually see it as a good thing because for some reason this team plays better when they have their backs against the walls. When they have a huge lead and it looks like, oh, for sure they're making it through, they suffer. They suffer big time. So this is going to be, this is a huge game for them. Hopefully they can come out on top there. And they've looked really good in their last couple games. I mean, they've won all 5 of their, they've won all 5 of their last, what am I trying to say? They've won their last 5 matches. There you go, Steven. And they defeated Borussia Dortmund in the round of 16. Huge win for them, especially since they've not been able to get through so in the past 3 years. So that was absolutely big, especially with Borussia Dortmund having so much great young talent in Haaland and Jadon Sancho. That was a big boost for them, a big confidence booster for them. So now we're done with PSG. Let's talk about Atalanta. And in their recent Champions League history, they have done. This is their first time making it to the Champions League. And it's unbelievable because they've absolutely exceeded expectations. They were in the Europa League the last 2 seasons, but they never made it past the round of 32. So just think about that. Like, the fact that they're in the quarterfinals, you know why I was talking to them about as the biggest surprises in Serie A this year. Unbelievable. And a lot of people are picking them to get past PSG. So let's just talk about a couple key players for them. Papu Gomez is easily their most important player right now. He's got 8 goals and 18 assists in all competitions. Has been absolutely huge for them in that midfield. He creates all the offense. He's 100% the creator for them. But then you also got Duvan Zapata. Duvan Zapata, I actually feel like Zapata is going to be the most important player for them, especially with Ilicic gone because of I don't want to talk about it, but those personal reasons that he's out. It's sad because now he's considering retiring, and he was such a prolific scorer for them. I mean, he had 21 goals, and he can even set up people. He had 5 assists in all competitions. So that's a huge loss for Atalanta. But that just means Zapata needs to step up. He had 19 goals and 6 assists this year. So he's another guy that can create offense and be that striker, the guy that can finish in the box for them. And he's going to need to be there against this PSG team. Now let's get into some of the key injuries and suspensions. Like I've already talked about, Josip Ilicic is going to be out for personal reasons. And he's going to be sorely missed. And defender Jose Palomino, it looks like Palomino might actually try to play. He's a game time decision, but he does have a hip injury, and I wouldn't be surprised if Atalanta has him go out there, especially with this being probably easily the most successful season in their history, and they don't want it to end now. So definitely, I wouldn't be surprised if you see Palomino out there. He's been their best defender, so he would also be extremely missed, especially when you're talking about the kind of attacking players that PSG has. So yeah, that's going to be a big one. And then in their recent form, they've actually they lost their last game against Inter Milan, but that's Inter Milan. They've been one of the better teams this year, especially in Serie A, and it looks like they're in the semi-final of the Europa League. So that's been a really strong team this year. So it's not really it's not surprising that there was a loss there. But then they've won, drew, and won and drew. So they've been kind of inconsistent these past few games that they've had. However, they did look extremely dominant in the round of 16 against Valencia. They defeated them 8-4 on aggregate, scoring 4 goals in each leg. Like I've already talked about, that offense is ridiculous. So huge game, huge round of 16 matchup for them. And for my prediction, I know some of you are going to be like, hey, well, he's the PSG fan, but I see them winning 3-2. This is going to be I see PSG winning 3-2. This is going to be a really, really exciting matchup with 2 offenses that are explosive. If Mbappe plays, even more so, even though, you know how I'm saying, like, when they feel like they got the advantage, they play less together, less, focused. But I believe PSG will win 3-2 and make it to the semifinal. And they could possibly be facing Atletico Madrid or RB Leipzig. And of course, they'd rather play RB Leipzig because without Timo Werner, that team is very weak. At least, in terms of like front players, attacking players. So that's going to be a very interesting semifinal match, whoever they end up facing. And that's actually the matchup we're going to be going into next with Atletico Madrid versus RB Leipzig. Now, Atletico in their the past couple, between 2013 and 2017, Atletico had easily their most successful run in the Champions League, but it was also their most frustrating because they were the runner-ups in both 2013-14 and 2015-16. Both of those losing to Real Madrid, with the 2016 Champions League being the most devastating. They were tied 1-1 going into extra time, and then in penalties, they lost 5-3. Absolute heartbreaker. And then when you add on top of that they again lost to Real Madrid the year after in the semifinal, 4-2 on aggregate. Yeah, that hurts. That really, really hurts. I mean, that's just as bad. No, it's not just as bad as PSG. I'm not going that far. But it sucks. I mean, for you to lose runner-up to your rival 2 years in 2 out of 3 years, and then for them to eliminate you again the year after, it's just really, really hard to overcome that. But hopefully maybe this year it can turn around, because they do have a very favorable bracket with, PSG, Atalanta, and then RB Leipzig. They could easily make it to the final once again. So let's talk about a couple key players that are going to be keys to that run. So it's going to be starting with Alvaro Morata. In all competitions, he's had 16 goals and 4 assists. Very strong season for him. And he, when you talking about, you have Diego Costa on that team as well. You have a lot of really good attacking players there. And then also, you got to think about Jan Oblak. You cannot talk about Atletico Madrid without mentioning their absolute star of a goalkeeper in Jan Oblak. He's had 48 starts this year, and he's had 22 clean sheets and a 77.2 save percentage. Really, really solid numbers overall for any goalkeeper. And for Jan Oblak, really solid season. Not his best, but he's still one of the best goalkeepers in the world. And last, I'm going to say Marcos Llorente. He's had 5 goals and 4 assists so far in all competitions. And a big chunk of that was against Liverpool in their recent round of 16 win against the former champions. And that is why I feel like he's going to be such a key player, because he's shown already that he can make big plays in big games. Because there is no bigger game than going into a round of 16 matchup against the former champions, other than probably, going in a final. But for Llorente to come through in those 2 legs was just absolutely huge for them. Now, let's talk about some key injuries. Key injuries would be Angel Correa. He's actually being quarantined, and he's in all competitions. He's got 7 goals and 7 assists. They're going to really miss that offense creativity, especially when you consider that they don't really have a lot of that. So for him to be quarantined at a time like this, it really, really hurts that squad. And in their recent form, they've actually looked pretty good. They have 3 wins and 2 draws in the last 5 games, and like I already said, they knocked off the former champions, the reigning champions, Liverpool, in the round of 16. Absolutely huge for them. So moving on, we're going to be talking now about RB Leipzig, who are the most different team from how they looked in the round of 16 to now, because of course, like I've already said, they do not have Timo Werner. That is a huge, huge loss for this team. I mean, that guy had over 30 goals and over 10 assists for them. He was pretty much everything there. But honestly, even with that, it's fine. I mean, the RB Leipzig, they're by far the youngest club in this entire competition. They were founded in 2009. However, they have found early success, making it to the Champions League for the first time in 2017, 2018, after finishing second in just their first Bundesliga season. Incredible success for them. I mean, honestly, I don't know the history of, teams' early success in their history, but that's got to be up there with the best. Now, they didn't make it out of the group stage, but then went to the quarterfinal in the Europa League. So they've had some success in Europe. Now, let's move on to some of the key players that they have. And easily, we have to start it off with Christopher Nkunku, who has had an absolute star of a season with 5 goals and 13 assists in all competitions. He's their best creator ever since Timo Werner is gone. I mean, honestly, he was still their best creator. He was one of the best assist men in the entire Bundesliga. And he's going to be huge for not just this game, but literally RB Leipzig's future. So definitely keep an eye on Nkunku. Next key player would have to be Marcel Sabitzer. He's had 16 goals and 9 assists in all competitions, and was absolutely, and this is just another attacking player that's going to have to fill in that role for Werner. It's a tall task, but they have to do it if they want to have a chance against Atletico. And last, I'm going to be talking about Dayot Upamecano, the defender for RB Leipzig that is one of the most sought out defenders in the world. He leads the regulars for the team in pressure percentage with 42.7%. He's second in aerial duels won with 61, third in interceptions with 43, and he can initiate the offense as he loves to make runs. Like, you see it often. Like, you'll probably see it in the matchup between him and Atletico, between RB Leipzig and Atletico, with him taking up the ball, and trying to initiate the offense. And he's also a great passer, completing nearly 90% of his 70 passes per game. Absolutely amazing from him, and he's going to be really important to stopping the Atletico attack. Now, let's get into a couple key injuries for them. They actually really have one key injury, which is Yusuf Poulsen, their center forward, just another striker that is not going to be there with an ankle injury. He's had 5 goals and 6 assists. Nothing crazy, but it's just another guy that they could use with Timo gone. So that's going to be hard for them, and it'll be interesting to see if they can find goals in this match, especially with a team like Atletico that is known for their defense. And in their recent form, they've looked okay. They have 2 wins, 2 draws, and a loss. And of course, they did defeat the Spurs in the round of 16. I don't know how much of a accomplishment that is with how the Spurs have been playing this year, but still, it's big for a team like RB Leipzig. I mean, to defeat a top English team like the Spurs, really good form for them. And for my prediction in this matchup, I easily see Atletico Madrid coming out on top 2-0. And that would mean that they would be facing PSG, and that would be a very, very fun matchup to watch. Next, let's talk about Bayern Munich versus Barcelona. Now, Bayern Munich, in their last couple seasons, they won the CL back in 2012-2013 over rivals Borussia Dortmund, but they haven't made it back to the final since. Last year was their biggest disappointment in years as they lost to the eventual champions Liverpool in the round of 16. That's not common for them. They make it further than that usually. They made it to the semifinal 4 times between 2013 and 2018. So they know how to play in Europe, and some key players that have been very strong for them include Robert Lewandowski, who has a ridiculous 53 goals and 8 assists in all competitions. Thomas Muller, who has 12 goals and 25 assists. And then you got Manuel Neuer, one of the best goalkeepers in the world, if not maybe the best goalkeeper in the world, who has 48 starts, 20 clean sheets, and a 73 save percentage. It's very solid. And then some of the key injuries you got Ben Pavard. Oh my God, almost missed. You got Ben Pavard, who has a ligament injury, and it's going to be really hard for them to fill, and it's not going to be hard for them to fill a spot, because of course if he's not there, you move Kimmich down to right back as usual, his normal position, and then they got plenty of depth in the midfield. But still, that's going to be a very hard loss because he has played most of their games this season, so it's going to be something that they haven't been used to this year. Now, they have won their last 5 matches, so they're in excellent form going into this game against Barcelona, and they dominated Chelsea in the round of 16, winning 7-1 on aggregate. And then Barcelona. Now, Barcelona won the Champions League back in 2014, 2015, but have since been met with disappointing results. They've been eliminated in the quarterfinals 4 of the past 5 Champions League campaigns. They lost in the semifinal in 2018-2019 to Liverpool in their route to their championship. And that was after going up 3-0 in the first leg. Unprecedented from a Lionel Messi-led team, but it's the truth that they have not performed the way that people expect Barcelona to perform in the Champions League. Now, obviously, key players, you already know it's Lionel Messi. I mean, he's got a ridiculous 31 goals and 24 assists in all competitions. And then his striker mate, Luis Suarez, has 20 goals and 11 assists. Now, those are obviously the two most important players on this team. I mean, you still got a slew of talented players on this squad, but those two guys are the ones that you expect to lead this squad to the promised land. Now, they do have a couple key injuries with Samuel Umtiti and Ousmane Dembele, the two French players. Ousmane Dembele hasn't really played that much. He's been an absolute disappointment since coming for, it was like 170 million euros from Borussia Dortmund. But overall, Barcelona have looked really solid. They've won 4 games. They did lose 1 in the last 5 games. And they defeated Napoli handily, especially in that second leg, with an aggregate score of 4-2. But in this matchup, it's just hard to see anybody defeating Bayern Munich. I mean, I see them Bayern Munich winning 3-1 handily. And, unless Messi can, pull off some magic, I don't see Barcelona making it past the quarterfinal stage. And now last, but certainly not, let me not say that. But last matchup, we're going to be talking about Manchester City versus Lyon. Manchester City did make it to the semifinal once in the 2016 Champions League, and that's as far as they've gone. They followed that up with a round of 16 exit in 2016-17, and then have been eliminated in the quarterfinal the last 2 seasons. Disappointing for a team that pays as much, or has as much money into their lineup as Man City does. But hopefully maybe this year could be the one. I mean, they do have Lyon in this matchup, which is our heavy underdogs. And some of the key players for Man City is, of course, the player of the year for them, Kevin De Bruyne, who has 15 goals and 22 assists. You also have the electric striker duo of, Raheem Sterling is really a winger. But, the attacking duo of Raheem Sterling and Gabriel Jesus. Sterling has 31 goals this year, while Jesus has 23 goals and 11 assists. Both of them are huge for this team, especially when you consider Sergio Aguero possibly being out for this game with his, Sergio Aguero and his 23 goals being out for this game. So it's going to be really big. I mean, I still believe, of course, that Manchester City will probably win this one because it's just hard to see Lyon continuing this stretch of surprising play in Europe. But let's talk about them now. They haven't had a lot of success in the Champions League. They made it to the semifinal of the Europa League in 2016-17, and they lost to Ajax handily 7-2 on aggregate. And then, of course, they lost to Barcelona in the Champions League round of 16 last season, also by a ridiculous 5-1 aggregate score. Now, they do have some solid attacking players, with Moussa Dembele having 22 goals and 6 assists in all competitions, and Memphis Depay with 15 goals. But I do believe their most important player in this matchup is going to be their goalkeeper, Anthony Lopez. I mean, the performance he had against Juve in the round of 16 was unbelievable. I mean, that save that he had on Ronaldo's free kick was just unbelievable. I mean, no one should have saved that, but he did. And really, they don't have any injuries or suspensions to speak of. So, I mean, that's big for them, and it's going to be... But, however, they have not been playing well recently. They do have 4 losses in their last 5 games, even though those have been against PSG. 2 of them were against PSG and 1 against Juve. So, even though they got enough in that Juve win to go ahead on aggregate score, I just don't see them having enough in this game. And so I see them losing 3-0 to Man City. And so that's going to finish it up with this segment. Make sure you guys stick around, because in the next segment, I'm going to be talking about the top 10 players in Serie A this season. Stick around, folks.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back, everyone. In the last segment, we talked about the Champions League quarterfinal matchups, gave a quick review of each team, talking about their key players and all that. And now I'm going to be giving you the top 10 players in Serie A this season. So let's get right into it with number 10, Robin Gosens from Atalanta, the left back from Atalanta. In 34 matches, he had 9 goals and 7 assists. And for this spot, I was actually considering another Atalanta star in Duvan Zapata. However, I feel Gosens was much more integral to Atalanta's success this season. He was an excellent playmaker, finishing with 7 assists, good for second on the team. And he also completed a little over 1 key pass per game. For a young fullback that hasn't had a lot of success, that was impressive. And he won't actually really impress you with he won't really wow you with his dribbling skills, and he's not the most athletic, but he is very deceptive with his moves. I can remember there was a lot of times this season where I felt like there was a much stronger or a much more athletic player coming at him, and he made a quick move, or he actually had a few elasticos this season that really, really impressed me. And aside from that, defensively, he was also very solid, as he completed 1.8 tackles per game, 1.8 tackles and 1.1 interceptions per game. He has both the composure and aggressiveness on the defensive end, both excellent qualities that you want to have for any defender. And with him being from Germany, I can easily see him getting an international call-up in the future, probably as soon as this season, if there's any international play. So definitely be looking out for Robin Gosens from Atalanta, the next up-and-coming German in that long line of just ridiculous players. Next, for number 9, we're going to be talking about Edin Dzeko, the Roma striker from Bosnia and Herzegovina. I just really wanted to say that country's name. In 35 matches, he had 16 goals and 7 assists. Now, there were a few Roma players that I was thinking about to make this top 10 list, like Mkhitaryan and even Smalling. However, Dzeko was the driving force for Roma and their top 5 finish in the league. He led the team in goals with 16 and was second in assists with 7. He's an excellent workhorse striker. Someone that he reminds me of is like Cavani, even though I believe the Dzeko is way more clinical, in the box, which is excellent. I mean, he puts his body on the line for his team, and he's super strong. Have you seen his build? I mean, he's huge. So he's able to put his body on defenders and really help, control the ball with that. Like I said, he does have 7 assists. He does have 7 assists for a reason, as he completes 1.4 key passes per game. So he's obviously not just a striker who's able to connect well with his team. I mean, he sets them up with excellent passes night in, night out. And he's actually, when you look at him, he's very deceptive. I mean, he's very big, but he does have a pretty nimble body. I mean, he's able to get by a few guys. But the thing is, if you get him in the box, if you give him the ball in the box, forget about it. It's game over. And that is why Edin Dzeko comes in at number 9. Number 8, we're going to be talking... Oh, and before I continue, this is easily my favorite top 10 list out of any of the ones I've done so far, because in the Bundesliga and in the Premier League, the title-winning team completely dominated the top 10 list. And it was hard for me not to put them there. It wasn't because... I just wanted to. They had a bunch of players that played well. In Serie A, there was so much great talent on so many different teams, and that's one of the things I love the most about this league. So now, coming in at number 8, we're going to be talking about Domenico Berardi from Sassuolo, their forward from Italy. In 31 matches, he had 14 goals and 10 assists. One of the only players to have double-digit goals and assists in the league, and the former Juventus striker had easily the best season of his career. He was the key piece to Sassuolo's strong season. I know Caputo also had a really, really strong season. However, I do believe Berardi was way more integral, just like Gosens was way more integral than Zapata. With his 24 combined goals and assists, he was responsible for a third of their goals. He's a complete attacker. He finishes literally from anywhere. You want a free kick? He's got that. Tight finishes inside the box? He's got that too. Outside wonder goals? No problem. And on top of that, he's an excellent playmaker and a solid dribbler. This season, he completed 1.7 key passes and 1.4 dribbles per game, meaning he can get you, he can create for himself, and then he can create for others. That is what you want from a frontline player, and he gave it for Sassuolo all season. That's why they finished with a really strong year. I believe they finished 8th in the league this season, very close to a Europe spot, even though, Roma and was it AC Milan, those teams started separating. Sassuolo was in the mix for much of the year. And that is exactly why Berardi comes in at number 8. Now, at number 7, we're entering a different tier here, people. From here on in, we got the top cream of the crop. Now, coming in at number 7, we got Romelu Lukaku from Inter Milan. In 36 matches, this man put up 23 goals and 2 assists. He is by far the strongest striker in the entire world. And if you don't believe me on that, go ahead and go check out Inter Milan's victory over, what was the team? I'm forgetting. In the Europa League, the most recent match that they just had in the quarterfinals. Go look at that game. You're going to see this man just absolutely body the defender and multiple times, and then just open up the goals for him. It's just ridiculous. Like, if you see that man in the box and he's got his back to you, forget about it. Just forget about it. And goal scoring is definitely Lukaku's greatest skill, but it is not his only one. He's also a really good playmaker for his position, as he led Inter Milan with 54 key passes. That's 1.5 key passes per game. So it's actually pretty surprising that he only has 2 assists. And before I continue, Lukaku is a sniper. Once he gets the ball once he gets the foot on the ball, of his 95 shots this season, 41 were on target. That's 43.2% shot on target percentage. Just absolutely ridiculous. You don't want him with the ball. Just plain and simple. If you're a defense, you don't want Lukaku with the ball. Plus, for his size, he's extremely deceptive. He's a deceptively good dribbler. He completed 60% of his 40 dribble attempts. Real solid all around from Lukaku this season, and a huge signing for Inter Milan after he kind of failed in Manchester United the years before. Now, and that is why he comes in at number 7. Now, number 6, we're going to be talking about Luis Alberto from Lazio. This guy put up 36 matches. He had 6 goals and 15 assists. Those 15 assists were good for second in the entire league. Alberto was the talisman midfielder for a really strong Lazio side, and he was a big reason why they had that 21-game unbeaten streak. I mean, the whole team was playing well, but Alberto was in the middle of it all. His ability to pass the ball and control the midfield was essential to Lazio's success. Like I said, he led the team with 15 assists and completed 79.2% of his 63 passes per game. Great success rate, and this man was playing really well all year. And then when you look at these absurd averages of 3 key passes and 2 dribbles per game, 2 successful dribbles per game, I should say, it's just, it's hard not to put this man. I was thinking about putting him higher because of how important he was to Lazio's success, but it's just the guys ahead of him just showed up a lot more and had some silverware to take home. And that's who we're going to be talking about next, with number 5 being Paulo Dybala. Paulo Dybala, the Juve stud. Had in 33 matches, had 11 goals and 7 assists. And on top of that, he won the MVP of the Serie A season. I mean, I feel like a lot of people were surprised by this. I mean, not many, but I did see a few analysts saying that they believe that Immobile should have won because of his record-breaking season, or Ronaldo for, being the top goal scorer on the team. But that's not what makes an MVP. Just because you score a lot does not mean that you should be the MVP of the season. And Dybala is the exact epitome of that. Because last year was an adjustment period for him. He was getting used to playing alongside Cristiano Ronaldo. So so you got to understand. I mean, when you're playing with a player of that caliber, and a lot of that also goes to Ronaldo, who probably really wanted that spotlight, coming to a new team, wanting to lead them to championship glory. I mean, obviously that not being the case either of these 2 seasons that he's been with the club. But Dybala is as complete a player as they come. He was second on the team in both goals and assists. He completed 83.4% of his 46 passes per game and averaged just over 2 key passes per game. So he was definitely setting up his team, getting guys in the positions that they needed to score goals, and he overall just delivered. He came up in the clutch in so many different situations for Juve, and it just sucks that he couldn't do that again in the Champions League. It just always comes back to that. But overall, he just absolutely deserves to be in the top 5 of this list. I know he was given MVP, so I mean, he's considered number 1. But on my list, he comes in at number 5 because the guys above him, just in my opinion, I feel like this now goes up one more tier. You got a whole other tier of players coming up next, and at number 4. We have Josip Ilicic from Atalanta, their primary striker. In 26 matches, he had 15 goals and 5 assists. He was just think about it. Ilicic was the striker for the best offense in Serie A and one of the best offenses in the entire world. He had a stretch midway through the season where he scored 9 goals in 6 matches. That spurred Atalanta to a top 3 finish this season. He's extremely quick and nimble for his size, and if you give him any space in the box, it's pretty much game over. He's that kind of striker. And on top of that, he's also a solid playmaker, as he registered 5 assists and completed over 80% of his passes this year. And then look at these averages. He averaged 2.4 dribbles and 2.2 key passes per year. I mean, this guy was doing a lot more than just scoring, and that's why it was impossible to leave him any lower than 4th. It's just unfortunate that he wasn't able to finish this season out, as he could have easily had a 20-goal season and possibly been 3rd on this list. However, he had a teammate that just looked way more dominant than him and played pretty much the entire season. And that's why in number 3 we have Papu Gomez. Alejandro Gomez from Atalanta, their talisman midfielder, absolutely dominated this year, the entire Serie A. And as good as Ilicic was this season, Papu Gomez was even better. He was Atalanta's linchpin in the attack that kept everything flowing. He led, let's just go and list off a couple of these accounts. He led the Serie A with 16 assists. He has literally every skill you can ask for from an attacking midfielder. He's a clinical finisher with 90 in his 96 shots. He had 42.7% of them on target. That's, he had 7 goals. He's mainly known as a playmaker, but he had 7 goals and just ridiculous. He's also obviously an excellent passer, completing 79.4% of his 56 passes per game. You add on top of that 2.9 key passes per game, and you're looking at a guy that's just, finding his teammates night in and night out, just giving Atalanta every chance they need to be the best, one of the best offensive teams in the world, and the best offensive team in Serie A, no doubt about it. And then he's also got great skill with the ball at his feet, with 2.1 dribbles per game. So if you want some exciting highlights to watch, go check out Papu Gomez of Atalanta. He will not disappoint you. Trust me. Now, coming in to the final two, this was very hard to put together because I really felt like I know what I said when I talked about Dybala, where goals don't really make it. But the thing is, what these guys did this season was absolutely unbelievable. And then, let me just get right into it. Number 2, we have Cristiano Ronaldo, one of the greatest players of all time, literally a god amongst men in the soccer world. I mean, this guy just season in, season out, goes and shows you why he's considered probably the second best player of all time. I mean, along with Dybala, he was the key piece to Juve's 9th straight title. And usually in most Juve seasons, they have a collection of players throughout their roster that, had a hand in, all the goals, assists. But this season, that was Ronaldo and Dybala. And Ronaldo, in 33 matches, he had 31 goals and 4 assists. He almost a goal per game. I mean, it was just ridiculous what he was doing. And then when you consider, how he performed in the Champions League and how he pretty much almost brought Juve back. I mean, it sucks that he hasn't been able to have any success there, but you can't really blame him all that much. I mean, because when they were down 1-0, 2-0 on aggregate, he came back with 2. I mean, obviously that one, the one penalty that brought it back 1-1, and then that ridiculous goal from outside the box. That's just another day at the office for Ronaldo. They're always putting in goals. But then obviously aside from that, he's off at the same time completing 84.3% of his 39 passes per game. Absolutely ridiculous from him. And then you combine that with his 1.7 successful dribbles per game. He's just doing it all for them, creating and mainly creating usually for himself to get rid of. But can you blame him? And can you blame Juve for letting him? I mean, he's one of the best to ever do it. So this is just me hoping that he can solve it in the Champions League. I mean, I don't want him to win it all. I'm leaving that for my PSG team. But, I mean, just to have a little more success at Juve, I mean, it just sucks to see how that whole relationship with him and Real Madrid just kind of fell apart. And it's not worked out for either side. So, yeah, that just me hoping Cristiano Ronaldo could solve it over there at Juve. However, he did not even come close to what the next guy on this list, and come on, we all know who I'm about to say, because if he's not on this list, then I lose all credibility. Ciro Immobile comes in at number 1. The Lazio striker, Golden Boot winner. In 37 matches, this man put up 36 goals and 9 assists. Now, where do I begin with what Immobile has accomplished this season? I believe I already said it. He tied the record for most goals in a Serie A season with 36, tying Gonzalo Higuain's 2015-2016 season. And on top of that, no other Lazio player had double-digit goals, which just goes to show how important he was to keeping them in games. He was, and when you, oh my God, and when you consider the fact that he was also in the top 5 in assists per game, assists in the season as well. Look at this stat right here. He was responsible for 57% of Lazio's goals this season. That's ridiculous. That's crazy. And the fact that they're 4th, you can easily say he's the reason they're there. He's 100% the reason that they made 4th in the league. And not like a bad 4th. He was right there with Atalanta and just 5 points off of Juve for the title win. So just unbelievable season. And then just a little cherry on top. He averaged just under 1.5 key passes per game. So you're putting all that together. You have one of the most complete strikers in the world. I mean, he has excellent players behind him facilitating for him, but Immobile makes it happen for Lazio. I mean, I don't know any other Lazio player to because I don't know the history of Lazio, but I'm just going to go down and say he's the best player to ever play for them. Can I say that? I can say that. This is my show. I can say that. So that's going to finish it for today's show. Thank you for listening to the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask you that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, I'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you, and have a great night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.